Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is the 2022 NPC Nationals Light-Heavyweight Champion and newly crowned IFBB Pro. Today's guest is Nick Jackson. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome, man. So we're gonna kind of get into Nationals talk and get into kind of the surrealness of being an IFBB Pro. But before we kind of get there, I want to ask you a couple questions just to kind of get the conversation going. So I'd like to know, Nick, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Oh man, I think right off the bat, the first name that comes to mind is Flex Wheeler. His entire package is something that is not really matched. I mean, from his tiny waist to his magnificent V-taper to the amount of muscle and density that he had. Like, he, to me, was one of the best in that 90s era as far as aesthetics. And the way that he posed, the way that he presented himself on stage, I think is something just magnificent and something that I would love to not mimic, but at least to be able to do at some rare form, to be as crisp and as professional as Flex Wheeler was when he was competing. If I had to have a second favorite, I have to go with Ronnie Coleman. Like, Ronnie is hands down the best bodybuilder of all time. I mean, to win as many Olympias as he did and to do it the way that he did and the intensity in which he trained, his mentality, everything that came with being the greatest that he was. I hope that I can take just a little bit of that drive and use that in my own professional career. Yeah, those two, Ronnie and Flex, hands down.
Excellent, man. Now, who are some of the guys currently like in the IFBB that you kind of look up to or admire their physiques that maybe are going to be on the Olympia stage, next weekend, or maybe they're not even Olympians, but who do you kind of like current day?
William Bonac. I've followed him, and I loved his physique. When looking at his back poses, it's almost like he doesn't have a lower back. Like, he's so dense and he's so thick that it's like his lower back is completely non-existent because his upper back just takes over everything. So it's like it goes from upper back to glutes, and that's all you have with William Bonac's physique. And I think that is so amazing. And the way that he presents it and the way that he poses and the thickness in his legs and his glutes and his hamstrings, I admire that so much. And I would also say Brandon Curry. I like his story because I remember when he first came on the Olympia stage, if I remember right, he wasn't even in the top 10. I think he was kind of towards the bottom. And then he went out to Kuwait and trained out there. And he came back with this brand new package, and he looked just phenomenal. Like, it was almost as if he ate his prior self. He grew so much over there, and he not only got into the top 5, but then he was in top 2, and then he won the Olympia. And I was so excited to see him finally win his Olympia, and then come so close last year to winning another one. And his consistency and the way that he took the time to really build on what he felt like were his shortcomings, even if he may not have had any, just to leave no doubt that he should be an Olympia winner. Like, he went about it in the best way possible. And to know that he's from my home state of Tennessee, he lives there, he trains out there sometimes, makes it even more awesome because he's representing the state of Tennessee on the Olympia stage. So all those things combined, I definitely look up to him as well.
Great for bodybuilders right there that you just named. I love it, Nick. So why don't you let us know at what age you started lifting weights, Nick, and then why did you start lifting weights at that specific age?
So I started lifting weights at about 15, and I started playing football in high school, and that was just kind of the deal. You needed to get a little muscle, add a little strength, and so that's when I started. Uh, Add a little protein and stuff like that into it, but it was just mostly just coming in the summers, doing the football training, and then just kind of getting ready for the season.
Excellent. Okay, so you mentioned being from Tennessee. So why don't you talk a little bit more about your childhood, your upbringing? You mentioned football. I'm assuming sports was probably a big part of your upbringing. So just touch on that. Are you an only child? Do you have siblings? Just paint that picture of your childhood up to about high school. And then once we get to high school, you can kind of just stop there because I've got some questions that kind of transition us on.
Perfect. So I grew up in Memphis. I have an older brother. We're 8 years apart. I have two older sisters from my dad's first marriage. Uh, the year difference is pretty wide with them. Um, but growing up, I was very active, loved being outside, loved playing around. Uh, Sports, football, basketball, a little bit of baseball. I did little league for a little bit. Wasn't Didn't really pick up on it as much as I wanted to, but definitely wanted to play football. I tried out for the basketball team, not tall enough, but so I stuck with football. Track was a big thing for me as well. So moving through middle school into high school, track was my first sport. And then as I was running track, the head coach of the football team noticed me running, and he felt like the speed that I had would be good on the football field. And I remember telling him, I said, you know what, I would love to play, but you have to talk to my mom first. And because my mom was so protective of me, she didn't want me to get hurt. She didn't want anything to happen to me. So if anyone needed to be convinced to allow me to play a contact sport like football, it'd have been my mom. So he he gave her the full court press. He called her and talked to her. He said, "This man has a gift. He needs to be able to use it. He's going to be successful on the football field. We'd love to have him." So she agreed begrudgingly to allow me to play, and so I played all 4 years of high school ball, ran track all 4 years of high school, and just loved every minute of it.
Hmm. What position in football? Running back, defensive back?
So my majority was defensive back. My junior year, I played a little bit of wide receiver, but most of my time was defensive back.
Okay, cool. Now, being from Tennessee, who are some of the athletes or who are some of the like professional sports teams that you kind of admired or looked up to or rooted for?
So the University of Tennessee Volunteers. So that's my college football team. I know you're going to be asking questions going forward, but that's where I went to college, was the University of Tennessee. And so I've been a volunteer fan for the longest, even before I went to college there. And like I remember as a kid, I just loved watching volunteer football. Surprisingly enough, I'm not a Tennessee Titans fan. Never really linked on to them. I'm an Oakland Raiders fan. Well, not Oakland anymore, the Las Vegas Raiders now. And the biggest reason why I clung on to the Raiders was I remember watching an NFL documentary on just the history of the Raiders and the grittiness, the toughness, all the things that the Raiders encapsulated as a football team. I loved how the grit, I loved the toughness, the tenacity, all those things that were displayed as a team and as an organization. And I loved the colors black and silver. So that kind of just topped it for me. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be a Raiders fan till I die. So even with the bad seasons, good seasons, everything in between, I'm a Raiders fan. So the Raiders and the volunteer football team.
Hmm. Cool, man. Okay, so one last question before we kind of move on into the college years. So you mentioned going to the University of Tennessee. So obviously you had to focus on your academics at some point when you were younger. So did you enjoy school? Did you enjoy academics? Was that something that your mom really stressed when you were growing up? Talk about that for a quick minute, please, Nick.
Yeah, so education was definitely a big thing in my house between my dad and my mom both. My dad was definitely very hard on it, and my mom came in behind to kind of just reinforce the importance of education because in their mind it was you may be successful in sports, you may be successful in other endeavors, but those things don't last forever, and so you need to be able to have something to fall back on that's going to carry you into those later years when your body can't keep up anymore. And so that was, and also playing football, going back to the conversation my mom had with the coach, my dad had a conversation with me, and he said, you know, I'm comfortable with you playing these sports, but you have to be able to maintain your academics at the same time. And if we feel like your academics are slipping, then we're going to have to make a decision on whether or not you're going to continue to play these sports. Because at the end of the day, you may be successful, but we want you to be academically strong just as much as you are on the football field or the track field. So academics was a huge deal. And I enjoyed school. I really did. I had my challenges here and there. Math was kind of a challenge for me getting up into junior and senior year of high school. But other than that, everything really came not easy, but they weren't overly challenging. I was still able to maintain good academics. I loved history, still love history. One of my favorite classes in high school, and I was able to get a couple scholarships to the University of Tennessee on academics. Football didn't pan out as far as college playing, and track didn't pan out. So everything going into college was all academic based, and I did well academically at the University of Tennessee as well. So I never really had an issue with the academic side.
Hmm. Okay, now on your Instagram bio, it says something about being an attorney. Or so, are you an attorney?
Yeah. So after I graduated from the University of Tennessee, I went to the William Bowen School of Law in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's the University of Arkansas Little Rock, not the one in Fayetteville. And so I went to law school there, and I've always wanted to be an attorney ever since I was 8. That was my dream, to be an attorney. I remember we had a play that we're acting out in my 5th grade English class, and it was pretty much based around legal scenarios. And I took on the role as an attorney, and I would watch Law and Order as a kid and all those different things. And so I remember acting out what I saw on TV as far as cadence in the voice, questions being asked, all those different things. And I did mock trial in high school. I actually got an internship from that mock trial experience to work for a personal injury firm in downtown Memphis when I was 17 years old. And so I did that for a summer. Did a little bit of mock trial in college, but never lost the vision of wanting to go to law school. So I am a licensed attorney. I passed the Utah bar last year, as a matter of fact. No, it was during 2020, the COVID year, is when I passed the Utah bar, and so it's been it was a hard road because I had to sit for the bar exam 3 times before I was able to pass it, and there was a moment where I felt like maybe it just wasn't for me. Maybe I wouldn't be able to become one. And then I was like, no, like this is your dream. You got to stick with it. And so on the last try during COVID of all times, I was able to pass it and check that off the goal list. So I am a licensed Utah attorney.
Wow, that's pretty cool, man. I love it. Now, um, okay, so we touched on the attorney thing. I guess I just want to kind of wrap up your entire college experience, because going to the University of Tennessee, obviously that's a huge Division I school. Um, and you said that you didn't play sports; it was just a focus on academics. Is there what was your college experience like? Is there like maybe like can you wrap it up for us in a few words or in a couple minutes? Like did you really grow up in college? Did you really learn a lot about yourself? Like, what were some of those experiences that you really cherish from those college years, Nick?
So I feel like I grew up a lot in college. I feel like there was definitely challenges that I had to meet. I remember I actually lost one of my scholarships because of my GPA dropped below the requirement. And having to tell my parents that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But I remember sitting down, I was like, you know what, we've got to buckle down. We got to figure this out. And so I buckled down and kind of laid back from enjoying the party scene and things like that, because I knew there were greater things for me to accomplish beyond going out with my friends every other weekend. So I really buckled down and kind of put things in priority. And that's where I really saw myself growing up and realizing that you have to be able to prioritize important things while also enjoying the leisure things. And so once you're able to take care of the important business, then you can have the time to enjoy those side things. And so once I was able to kind of grasp that concept, that's when I was able to regain my scholarship, kind of get back into good academic standing, and be even better in my academics while I was in college. And then also my relationship with different people, being able to realize who's good for me, who's not good for me. So I definitely feel like my college experience allowed me to really grow up as a person and also realize who I am and what my values are.
Great. Okay, so let's start kind of getting into some bodybuilding talk. So, why don't you tell us when's the first time that you remember bodybuilding like coming into your consciousness, or when was the first time that you actually saw a bodybuilder, whether that was on YouTube or a magazine? Like, talk to us about that, and then talk to us about how you actually got into bodybuilding.
So the first time I was seeing bodybuilding, I mean, I used to go down the magazine aisle at different grocery stores, and I would see Flex magazine and Muscular Development, and I would see all these guys on the covers, and I didn't really give much attention to it. It was more so, wow, like that guy's massive, like these people are huge, huge human beings. But it wasn't until college where I linked up with a few friends who were into the bodybuilding scene, and I would work out with them and I would train with them, and I learned a lot from them as far as workout techniques and things of that nature, and how to maximize my workout time and all those different aspects. And it was during that time where a couple of them were like, you know what, you have a good structure. Like, if you wanted to, like, you could be a competitor yourself. And I would kind of brush it off, say, yeah, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I understand there's like the dieting aspect and all the different things, and I love food too much. Like, my mom is a Southern Black woman. Like, she cooks like a Southern Black woman. Like, I don't want to miss out on any of that. Like, I want to be able to enjoy this. I want to be able to enjoy that. And I don't want to wear those tiny trunks. Like, I don't want to do any of that. And it was at that point I was like, you know what, I'll just keep working out with you guys, because I enjoy the fitness. I enjoy being able to lift. Like, it's part of my life. But as far as the seriousness of it, yeah, I'll let you guys take care of it. But it wasn't until I got into law school, my first year of law school, and I was still working out, and I was still making it part of my regimen every day. I was going 6 days a week at the same time every day, and I was slowly starting to watch what I was eating. I wasn't doing too much of the junk foods anymore. I was really starting to clean up my diet on my own. Like, it wasn't necessarily into wanting to prepare for a show, but it was more so wanting to look a certain way and how I wanted to look. And then as I continued to do that, I remember just waking up one morning, and I was just kind of sitting and thinking and sitting and thinking. And I told myself, I don't want to get 50, 60, 70 years old and look back on this time and wish I would have done it and wish I would have tried it. And so it was at that moment where he's like, you know what? I want to do this. I want to jump into it. And what a time to do it during your first year of law school. But I reached out to a buddy of mine, Josh Brown, and I was like, hey, I want to get rid of this competition. Do you think you can help me out? And so he was getting ready for the same show, and he was like, you know what? I'll be more than happy to help you out. Like, here, I'll give you some tips. I'll give you kind of the idea what you need to eat every day, what supplements you need to take, how much cardio you need to be doing. And so he really was the first person to kind of help, like, took me by the hand and walked me through my first bodybuilding prep. And that was in 2013. And so that's when I did my first show, was in 2013. And I did the novice class, true novice, and won my class and then won the overall novice division. And it was at that moment I was like, you know what? Maybe I am meant for bodybuilding. And then after that, I don't know if you have a question to follow up, so I don't want to keep going.
No,
If you have
keep
a
going.
question.
You're fine. You're fine. Go
Okay.
ahead.
And so it was after that where I started getting hits from different people. One in particular, his name is Wade Wilburn. He's out of Knoxville. He reached out to me after my first show. He was like, man, you have such an amazing physique. You have these full muscle bellies. You have your bubbly, all these different things. Like, I really want to help you prepare for your next one. And I took that as such high praise because I found out a little bit more about this person and realized that he knew what he was talking about. And he wasn't just blowing hot air. Like, he knew what he was talking about and what he was looking at. And so I was like, yeah, I would love to have your help with this next one. And so I did the same show again the following year in the open light heavyweight. Took second, and then uh, continued from there. After I graduated law school, moved out to Utah and took some time off. So I moved out to Utah in September of 2015. And my last show before that was 2014. And so taking some time off to kind of get adjusted, new life, all these different things. And I met my friend Mary Power, who who's a women's physique bodybuilder. She's a pro now. She wasn't a pro at the time that I met her, but she turned pro. And she commented on my physique as well at the gym, and we began our friendship. And so she linked me up with her coach, who is my current coach now, Jeff Later. And she showed him a couple pictures from my previous competitions, and he felt like I had the structure, the physique, and everything to be a successful bodybuilder. And so um, from there, I linked up with him, and we did our first show together. I think it was 2016. Yeah, 2016 here in Salt Lake. Did the light heavyweight class. I was 176, and I felt so tiny, and won the division, and then won the overall as well. And then we continued on to grow into my first national show in 2017 in Miami, NPC Nationals in Miami that year. And I didn't have huge expectations because I knew it was such a big show, and I was still wet behind the ears as far as doing that show. And I was like, you know what, if I can just make top 10, I'll be happy. Like, that was kind of the goal I set. And then we get there, and the show goes, and I get first call outs. And I remember when they called my number, it took me a few seconds to realize they called my number. I actually had to look down and say, "Oh crap, that's my number." So I like walk out there and ended up taking fourth place at my first national show, and I was so excited because I was not expecting that at all. I really wasn't, and to have that as my first time out, top five, I was just so excited. And then uh, I was getting ready to do nationals again in 2018. We were going to take another growth period, and then started prep in 2018. And that's when the health issues began. And so I started noticing it in about May of 2018. Things just weren't sitting right with my stomach. Digestion wasn't well. I was noticing things just not happening where they were happening with in the past. And I initially thought, it's just like a stomach ache, like stomach problem, something like that. So I didn't pay too much attention to it. And then it just kind of progressively got worse and got worse and got worse. And then through the summer, I wasn't really able to keep any food down. And so I was throwing up. I wasn't able to eat this. I wasn't able to eat that. And I was losing weight consistently. And I wasn't sleeping at night. I think at the worst of it, I was sleeping maybe 30 minutes a night. Like that's how much pain my stomach was in and how much I was going through with what my stomach and colon and everything was going through. And so I finally decided to go to a gastro doctor, and I told her all of my symptoms and everything like that. We did a colonoscopy, and I had ulcers lining my entire colon. And they took a biopsy of those things, and it came back that I had ulcerative colitis. And it mimicked, like, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's are very similar. Crohn's attacks the entire digestive from the back of the throat down. Ulcerative colitis is just concentrated into the colon. And so they diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis, and they gave me progesterone. I think that's the steroid to kind of help with the inflammation, and then a couple other inflammatory pills to take. And I started feeling better. And this was around July because I got the diagnosis on June 28th. And then they gave me the meds and everything. So the month of July, after I started taking those meds of 2018, I started feeling better. Started to feel like myself. I was able to eat. I was putting weight back on. I was getting back on the gym, because previous to that, I wasn't even going to the gym anymore. Like I was pretty much stuck on my couch, just, trying to make it through the day. And so I was getting back in the gym around July, and it was August 2nd of 2018. I was at work. It was 9:30. I would never forget it. I just had this like feeling of warmth just like rush through my body. Like it was an abnormal feeling of warmth. Like it's not like somebody turned the heat on. Like it was like my body just heated up from like 30 degrees to 120 degrees. Like that's how quickly it felt like it happened. And I have this urge to like I had to throw up, and then like the similar urge to throw up and have diarrhea at the same time. And I was like, this is not right. Like something's completely wrong. And so I was supposed to have a meeting with our general counsel. I was like, you know what? At general counsel at work. And it's like, I can't sit at this meeting. Like I feel terrible. And so I drove home. I lied down. I took some of the meds that I had at home, hoping that would help with the symptoms I was feeling. Nothing was helping. No position I would lie in would give any relief to the pressure. And it was like my stomach was in knots. Like it was a constant flex in my stomach. And so I called the doctor's office, told them what was happening. The nurse assistant said, well, it could just be gas. I was like, you know what? Like I do know the difference between gas pain and extraordinary pain, and this is beyond gas pain. And so I called uh, my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and I called her and I said, I need to go to the hospital. I need you to take me to the hospital. And so we get to the hospital that afternoon, and they rushed me in. I tell them all the issues I was having and everything like that. They rushed me in. They give me some Dilaudid to kind of help cool down the pain. It took 4 doses of Dilaudid to even get me to relax, like just to release the muscles in my stomach, just to relax, for them to even poke around to see what was going on. And so they rushed me to get a CT, and it comes back, and the surgeon's already there. He comes back in. He's like, "We got to rush you to surgery right now. You have a bowel rupture. So everything, literally in your in your colon, is floating around your stomach cavity right now. Like, you are at high risk of becoming septic. Like, if we wait any longer, there's just no chance for us to correct this." So I didn't have really enough time to even process what was happening, because I'm having to sign these consent forms as they're rushing me down into surgery. I'm having my wife, Emily, call my mom, let her know what's happening, because they're in Tennessee right now. And so I'm having her call them. I'm trying to figure out what my life is going to be like. And he said, as they're rolling me down, he explained to me that you're going to have an ileostomy bag for 7 months. And that crushed me, because at that moment I felt like my bodybuilding career was done. Like, I'm gonna have an ostomy bag, I'm gonna have this. I can't compete with an ostomy. Like, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't be able to do these different things. And I remember lying on the bed, and like tears rolling down my face, because it's like, this is the worst thing that could happen to me. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life as far as bodybuilding goes, because it had become such a huge part. And so they're rolling me down, and I finally get composure. I'm like, all right, let's do this. And the surgery, I think maybe it was like 3 or 4 hours, and wake up the next morning with an ostomy and in pain. and so that kind of, it was August 2nd, was the total colectomy. They pulled out my entire colon and everything, and I would never ever forget that day and that time.
Wow. Okay. Now that was one surgery. From your post that you posted recently, it said that you've had 3 abdominal surgeries. So was there other surgeries after that one that you just shared? If so, just kind of continue with the story, Nick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the process is a J pouch creation. And so the option with ulcerative colitis is it can either be controlled with medication, or you can have a J pouch creation. And if you choose to do the J pouch creation, then it's usually a 2-part surgery. But since mine was an emergency colectomy, it was 3 steps. So I had the emergency colectomy on August 2nd. And then I had to wait about 12, 15 weeks for recovery to do the second part of the surgery, which is creating the double loop ileostomy. And so that was the second surgery in December. And then I had to wait another 12, 15 weeks for the actual takedown surgery. And so what they do with the J pouch is they take the small intestine, they stretch it out, and the bottom of the J connects down to the rectum. And so now everything flows through my small intestine. So normally, for the normal function, your large intestine works as your colon, small intestine, part of the digestive tract. Now the small intestine is doing all the work. It's doing all the digestion, all the things. And so the takedown surgery was in March of 2019. And so the takedown surgery is when they take away the ostomy and they close up the ileostomy hole. And so now I no longer have the bag at this point, and everything is functioning through the J pouch. And you do have a risk of pouchitis, which is inflammation in the pouch. And usually that's taken care of with antibiotics or anything like that. And then there's some instances where the J pouch leaks, and so they have to go in and fix the leak. Luckily, I didn't have to worry about any of those things. I never got pouchitis. I've never had any type of leakage as far as my J pouch goes. So the surgery and everything was successful each step, the second and third step. Um, it After the takedown surgery, I waited about 12 weeks before going into the gym, because after each surgery, I waited about 12 weeks before going back because you're still at high risk of getting hernias. And so I waited the time for the proper healing steps and all that to take place. And so once the takedown surgery was done, 12 weeks was up, I slowly got back into the gym and doing small things, not trying to put too much pressure on the abdomen, all that. And I reached out to my coach and I said, Jeff, let's get an idea of when we can get back on stage again because I really want to compete again. And he was like, okay, let's figure it out. Let's figure out what you can and can't eat. Let's figure out how your body digests things. And surprisingly enough, I spoke to my surgeon. I had a nutritionist I had to go to because all this is new. Like all the new plumbing and everything's brand new stuff. So I told the nutritionist what I was already eating, and she said, I can't really give you any more advice because you're really doing everything you're supposed to as far as eating goes. Because I'm like, bodybuilders, we eat pretty healthily. We eat giant portions of things, but we still eat pretty clean. And so I told her everything I was eating. So, you know what, you're fine, you're good. Just make sure you pay attention just to how you digest things. And my surgeon, I talked to her and I said, is there any calorie caps or anything like that? She goes, no calorie caps. Just be aware again of how your body digests, what you can and can't digest, whatever gave you issues prior to surgeries, you still can't eat them now. Just be aware of those. Also, any processed foods, try to stay away from those things. But all in all, you should be able to still function the way that you did prior. You just have new plumbing. And you don't have to worry about nutrition or anything like that because all that still happens in the stomach. So protein absorption, carb absorption, all that still happens in the stomach. So your stomach is still the same. It's just how the second part of the digestion process happens. That's what's different now. So you don't have to worry about that. The only thing you do need to worry about is what she told me is dehydration. So when in a normally functioning colon, water gets absorbed during that digestion process. So when you pass a stool, water is absorbed into the colon, and then that's why you have the stool the way it is. Without having an actual colon, I'm losing more water going to the bathroom than the average person. So I have to make sure that I'm not only taking in enough water daily, but also taking in enough electrolytes to offset what I'm losing going to the bathroom. And to give you an idea, like most people go to the bathroom, I think um, 1 or 2 times a day, I think is what's healthy as far as stool passage goes. I go 5 or 6 times a day.
Wow.
Like that kind of gives you an idea of how often I go to the bathroom. And so I'm losing water each time that I go, electrolytes each time that I go. So I have to be very cognizant of how much water I'm taking each day, how much electrolytes I'm taking each day. But on the flip side, it's not hard because being a bodybuilder, I'm already drinking a gallon to a gallon and a half of water each day. So it wasn't that big of a transition of being cognizant of what my water intake is. So that wasn't hard for me. The only thing I needed to do was just add a little bit more electrolytes into uh, my water drinking habits just to offset some things. And then also post takedown surgery, I was going to the bathroom 10, 12 times. So it takes a while for the body to get adjusted to the new plumbing. So that first 2, 3 months post the takedown surgery in March of 2019, I'm going to the bathroom 10, 12 times a day. And so I would say about month 4 is when the numbers started to come down, and it was more 7 times. And now and to this day, it's like 5 to 6 times, which is where it's supposed to be as far as a functioning properly J pouch. And so no calorie cap, anything like that. So told my coach those things. He's okay, let's create a plan. Let's get you back. We need to build back the muscle you lost. We need to get you right where you need to be. So the entire year of 2019 was just a rebuilding year for me. Like everything we were doing at that time, just rebuilding, not recapping, but regaining the muscle I lost in the previous year. Because again, to give you an idea, when in May of 2018, I was about, I would say 245 pounds. By August 2nd, I was 210 pounds. And when I left the hospital after the emergency surgery, I was 160 pounds. Like, not 160, 178 pounds. So from May of 2018 to the day I left the hospital in August, I lost close to 70 pounds in just that short amount of time. So there was a lot of mass that I need to regain and rebuild and all those different things. So 2019 into the early part of 2020 with Jeff, we were working to get back and making sure everything was digesting properly. And so through that, I realized that I don't digest sweet potatoes well anymore. So I can't do sweet potatoes. Rice is not, jasmine rice is the carb staple for me that I can digest well. It doesn't hurt the stomach, doesn't make me feel bloated or anything like that. Spinach, green beans are usually the only two vegetables I can really process and digest properly. So those are the staples as far as vegetables and carb sources for myself. Proteins are totally fine. I digest beef well. I digest ground turkey, chicken, whatever protein source, no issue there. Dairy is a problem. I can't do really any like dairy. Like eggs are good, but like milk, cheese, those things I can't. I don't digest well at all. So we work our way through 2019 into 2020, and I stepped back on stage in October of 2020 at the Salt Lake show here in October, and won my division, took the overall that year, decided to go to nationals about a month or so after, stepped on stage at about, I think 190 pounds, I think is what we stepped on stage for nationals, and took third. And as much as I wanted to get the pro card then, I was really happy about where we were, considering where we came from. And so I was like, you know what, if that is what happened with just the amount of growth we've had to get third place after all this, I can't be upset. I'm more than ecstatic. And so from there, we moved on to USA's in 2021 and took fifth at USA's. And I said, all right, Jeff, I want to do kind of a full year of growth before we do another national show. And so after USA's was done in 2021, we went right back into the lab and we're like, all right, this is what we're going to do. We got the feedback we needed. You just need more size, you need more density, more size, a little more thickness in the back, thicker in the legs. Let's get to work. And so each workout that I did, I added a second back day into my workout week. And so I had 2 back days, 2 leg days. One back day was lat focused. Other back day was more so for rows, for width, and those different things. And so doing that consistently through the entire growth period. And then that's how we roll into nationals of 2022.
Wow, man. Okay, now before we get into nationals that just happened a few days ago, I want to take a step back to October of 2020. I'll just call that your comeback competition there in Utah, right? Now, that had to have been and you won the overall. I mean, you know, couldn't have done any better. I mean, that had to have been an emotional experience for you. What was it not? Why don't you talk about that? Because I mean, I can't imagine how many times you thought during the surgeries in this process, like you would never bodybuild, maybe never be able to lift weights again. So getting back on stage, winning that overall in October of 2020, like how emotional were you? How emotional was that experience?
So it was very, very emotional for me. I remember multiple times during my prep, I would talk to my wife and I would say, I wonder how well am I going to look on stage? Like, am I going to be the same person? Am I going to look the same? Is my body going to look the same? How is this prep going to go? Because this is my first time doing a prep with everything that's new. Like, am I going to have issues? I was worried about the dehydration process that we go through as bodybuilders. Like, how is that going to affect my stomach? I was worried about so many different things, and also just the thought of, do I still have it as far as being a competitor? Like, am I still going to be competitive enough, not only on a regional level but on a national level? Because we all know that the national level, the competition is that much stiffer, and I still want to be competitive on the national level because that's where my eyes are set. And so, being able to get back on stage in October after all the things and to win it, not only the class and the overall, like it was a surreal moment because I remember once the night was done, I sat at home and just thought about all the things that I'd gone through. And I fought back a tear or two, honestly, because it was such an emotional moment. And it I don't think I really grasped just the totality of being able to get back on stage after everything that I had gone through, because so many people have issues with their J pouch. I remember sitting in the hospital reading all I don't want to say horror stories, but people who had like different problems with their J pouch. They had leakage, they had pouchitis, they had all the different things. They didn't feel the same, they didn't look the same. And so I had all these different things rolling through my head through the entire process of getting the J pouch and then getting back into the gym. And will I be able to work out the way I want to? Will I be able to lift weights the way I want to? Will I get back to pushing weight the way that I want to? And yeah, it definitely was an emotional moment. But I think the real emotion came um, at nationals that year, the same year. So definitely the comeback in Salt Lake, but it really, really hit at nationals because it was the placing that really hit home, because after everything, I still was able to get into the top five because I was concerned about the scar on my stomach. Is that going to take away from my presentation? And my surgeon, being the amazing woman that she is, she redid my incision. So the first incision after the emergency surgery, it just looked a mess. And I expected it to, because they weren't necessarily trying to make it look pretty, and they were trying to save my life. So I wasn't expecting them to make it look beautiful. But when I told the second surgeon who did my last two surgeries, I told her I was a competitive bodybuilder. And she's like, you know what? We're going to make your incision look a little bit more aesthetic. We're going to make it look a little prettier, make it a little more longer abdominal line so it fits. And so she did an amazing job of doing that. But I was still concerned about it because it doesn't look like everybody else. Everybody else has the full abs and the tightness and that kind of thing. And so it was one of those insecurities of getting on stage again, having this scar. And so having that in the back of my head as I'm getting on stage at nationals and posing in front of these head judges and standing next to amazing competitors, and to hear my number called out as a top in the top five comparison, and then to even be in the battle for even second place to even get a pro card at the same show, like, it was overwhelming as far as the feeling of, okay, like, you don't have to worry anymore. Like, you don't have to be so concerned about this. You don't have to be worried about how you look on a national level. Like, you clearly still have what judges look for in regards to a top 5 physique. So let those worries roll off your back. Get back into the saddle. Get refocused, because you've already answered your question now about whether or not you can still be competitive. You've answered your question about whether or not this scar is going to take away from your presentation. All those things have been answered with your 3rd place placing at a national level show. So now that those questions have been answered, let's get back to work.
Love it, man. Okay, so let's talk about this past weekend, man. We're just today is Tuesday. You won your class, the light heavyweight class at the Nationals on Saturday. So why don't you walk us through, how did this prep go leading into this year's Nationals compared to other preps? Where was your mindset at? How much cardio did you guys get up to? Just kind of give us some of the finer details, so to speak, of this prep, and then walk us into peak week, and then maybe just stop there, and then I'll kind of transition us into competition day.
So this prep was definitely a little bit different than the last ones I've done. I was a lot heavier starting out in this prep than the last preps. So we started this prep. I was about 247 when I started this prep, which is the heaviest I've ever been. As far as starting a prep, the off season, I tipped over 250 in the off season, but we kind of grilled back in, like tightened up a little bit before this prep started. So 247 is what we started at, and we kept the food high through the beginning weeks. Saw quite a bit of drop in the beginning, and then it kind of started slowly being for like incremental drops in weight. There was still tightness as far as muscle and shape and everything like that. Like, I wasn't spilling over. I wasn't overly bloated or anything like that with how I looked. It was just more so just bringing everything in and tightening everything up through the weeks leading up to show. Cardio started out at about 30 minutes a day. I remember telling my coach, I was like, you know what, I really feel like the Stairmaster is the best option as far as cardio, because I feel like it's a lot more effective, a lot more efficient. And he felt the same. So he kept the cardio starting out 30 minutes on the Stairmaster, keep the heart rate above 130, and then we'll see how we go as we progress. And so as the weeks ticked on, food kind of came down, carbs came down as we ticked on through. Cardio started going up. We added a second session of cardio in the morning. This is actually the first prep where I didn't do fasted cardio. This is the very first prep where I didn't do HIIT. So I was able to eat that first meal in the morning, then go do that first session of cardio, rest a little bit, get a couple more meals in, and then go work out and do my second session of cardio after that post-workout, which was super, super helpful, because trying to do Stairmaster on an empty stomach, like, I don't know if anyone else has tried that, but it is no fun. It is zero fun to do the Stairmaster on an empty stomach. So being able to have just a little bit of food in me with that first meal really helped kind of push through that 30 minutes. And then it went from a total of 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And then we went to 45 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes in the evening. And that was cardio for the 45 minutes in the morning, 45 in the evening was the bulk of my prep. It wasn't until the last week and a half where we pushed it to a total of 2 hours. So 60 minutes in the morning, 60 minutes in the evening, because at that point we were really trying to get the last bit of water and last bit of fat that we felt like we were holding because from my physique and my body, my hamstrings, my glutes, and a little bit of my upper back tend to be very stubborn when it comes to holding on to water. Like, for whatever reason, it has a death grip on water and it does not want to let it go. So we have to do everything we can to really pull it off. But it was great because we didn't have to do it until the very last minute, like the very last point of prep. So it made prep a little bit easier because I wasn't having to do 2 hours for 3 weeks. And then on top of that, we started the no carbs at the same time that we started the 2 hour total of cardio. So it was the last week and a half where we were doing no carbs every day. And that was helpful too, because I didn't have to, again, go 3-4 weeks of doing no carbs, trying to get my body to respond. So this prep, in comparison to previous preps, I feel like my body responded well to the different changes in meal plan, to where we didn't have to do anything too extreme before peak week started. And so that kept me mentally in the game, because I feel like if I had to do those extreme things too early, then that kind of saps out the energy, that kind of saps out the drive to really stay focused and not want to sneak a snack here or sneak a snack there, trying to make it through. Whereas with this particular prep, I was so close to show, when we started doing these quote unquote extreme things, that I was still locked in to being the best that I could be. And so I didn't want to mess that up by adding in a snack here or a snack there. And the way we were looking, as far as physique wise, in the last week and a half, I definitely didn't want to add a snack in or snack there, because I felt like I was able to add on enough mass and size during that off season, that the way I was looking in the last week and a half, I was so excited and I was so happy about, that I didn't want to do anything, literally anything, to mess it up. So I was fully engaged, fully locked in, as far as making sure I was doing everything, dotting my I's, crossing my T's, before peak week started.
Hmm. All right. So when did you guys get into Orlando, and how did kind of peak week go for you? And then why don't you just walk us into pre-judging, which I believe was Saturday morning. So peak week, did it go smooth? Talk about that a little bit when you got into Orlando, and then walk us through pre-judging, and maybe just give us your thoughts after pre-judging, and then stop there, and then we'll kind of finish up after pre-judging.
So I got into Orlando Wednesday night. I didn't get to my hotel until about 10:30. My flight out of Salt Lake was around 12:30, and so I had a layover in Dallas. And so I was managing meals throughout the plane ride, managing water intakes. I had to drink about 2.5 gallons that day. So I made sure my plane seat was an aisle seat, so I didn't have to like climb over people to go to the bathroom too often. Um, but the peak week plan was pretty simple. Everything was still no carbs at this point. Um, so I was able, like, the getting the meals in, all that was totally fine. The plane ride, there were no delays, no issues, no stress. Didn't have any type of retaining of water from the flying or anything like that. I made sure that I walked around the airport to get some blood flow and things of that nature, so I wasn't just sitting down holding water or anything like that. So got into Orlando Wednesday night, woke up Thursday morning, sent pics to my coach, and he felt like we looked drier Thursday than we did Wednesday morning, which is, to me, was crazy, because I just pounded down 2.5 gallons of water and been sitting on a plane. And so, but we were still really close on the weight. So I weighed myself that morning, and we're sitting at about 198.7 as far as the weight. And the cutoff is 198 and a quarter for light heavyweight. And just to kind of give some backdrop, on the Saturday before, I can't remember the actual date, but the Saturday before, I was about 202 that morning. So I was incrementally losing weight from Saturday to Wednesday. So 202 that Saturday, and then the Wednesday before I left, I was 199. Woke up Thursday morning, 198.7. So I felt like at this point, maybe my body had finally reached a point where we just can't drop any more weight. And my coach was like, you know what, you're going to have to wait to eat until after weigh-ins. I was like, all right, we'll make it happen. So eat or drink. So I couldn't, like, there was no eating, no drinking until after 2 o'clock that afternoon. And so I did that, made that work, super hungry. But I weighed myself in my hotel, got right around 197. I was like, all right, we've made weight at this point. So get the check-ins and I get on their scale, and I was like 198 on the nose when I got on their scale at check-ins. And I had to wipe my forehead, like, whoo, we made it. Skin of our teeth, we made weight. And so after that, got food in me, had again, it was still no carbs on Thursday. Roll into Friday, changed up the amounts of protein on Friday morning. Still no carbs throughout the morning, and then got a small little workout in that evening, and then carbs. I have one carb meal to kind of fill back out Friday night, and then into Saturday morning, had a couple more carb meals. So the carb meal Friday night was 2 cups of rice, and then I had a 1.5 cup that morning, and then another half cup, 1.5 cup in the second meal before getting to prejudging. And so once we got to prejudging, I took more pics for my coach, sent it to him, and he felt like we had filled out properly. We were looking as tight as we could as far as the morning prejudging goes. He just kind of reminded me about posing, make sure I hit my legs properly, make sure I do this, make sure I do that. Those last minute tips that coaches love to kind of put in your brain so you don't forget. And I remember getting backstage and I'm looking around, I'm seeing all these amazing athletes and all these amazing competitors. I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be really, really fun. And seeing how big the middleweight class was, and then seeing how big the light heavyweight class was, I was like, these classes are stacked. Like, these are so many great looking guys. And it never fails. I feel like every national show, at least the ones that I've done, light heavyweight has always been a big class. There's always 30 plus people, and every one of them, there's not one person who's not dialed in, ready to go. So I do not want to be a judge trying to make a decision on 30 plus men who all look amazing. So I tip my hat to the judges trying to make those detailed decisions on who looks the best, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. But I remember going into the show, like going into prejudging, I felt really good. And I think the main reason was I looked at pictures from the prep for USA's and compared them to pictures for this show. And I felt like we had done so much growth in the year between that this is going to be, we're going to have a good placing is how I felt coming into prejudging. And so did everything, took 2 Rice Krispie treats, ate those before getting on stage, and took a little bit of honey to kind of get the pump going. And then the kind of the shocker was I had been prepping to do 45-second individuals, And then they told us backstage there were 30-second individuals. And so then I was like, well, crap, that's 15 seconds. I don't have anymore. Like, I got to rush through this. And so I get up during individuals, and I get upset with myself because I could feel that I didn't hit my legs as hard as I should have. And I remember getting off stage, and I thought to myself, I really hope that me not being able to hit my legs properly while I'm trying to go through all these poses doesn't knock me out of a potential top 5 comparison. Because I mean, that happens. Like, if you don't present well when they first see you, you don't really have another chance to do it. And so luckily it didn't. And I was able to get into the top 5 comparisons. And then what I told myself was, if you get into the top 5 comparison, you're going to have time to get set. So as you do that, make sure your legs are set. And so each pose that we did during comparisons, I made sure my legs were set properly before I did anything upper body. And that was kind of my focus through each comparison and each pose. And I remember, as we were going through the different rounds of posing, in my head, I'm like, how long is Steve going to have us up here? Like, we are just going through the paces, and he's killing me. He's killing me. I'm like, I'm trying to keep everything tight. I'm trying to not bloat out my stomach, trying to suck in air. Like, I'm trying to be as stoic and as statue as possible, because I know those are things that judges look for when they put you through those rounds. Is like, they want to see your endurance on stage. They want to see, can you hold your poses as they're working you through, because that's what you're going to be doing on the pro levels. Like, you're not going to be one and done. They're going to work you through. So they want to see who, posing wise, is pro ready. So I wanted to be able to show that and be able to do that. And so coming off stage, I felt pretty good because I wasn't moved. I stayed in the same spot the entire time. They're moving people around me. And so I felt good about where I was going to be placing. It was just a matter of where. Like, is it going to be a second? Is it going to be a third? Is it going to be first? Like, those things, I wasn't confident in the position of placing. It was just more so, I know that I was going to be in the top 3. I just didn't know where in the top 3 I was going to be.
Mm. Okay, so Nick, why don't you? We're gonna wrap up the podcast by you just walking us through, the evening, the moment that you found out or you knew that you were in the top 2 and you got that pro card. And I know before we hit record, you told me it's surreal. It hasn't sunk in, which it probably won't for a while. That's what all the guys always tell me. But so touch on finals, touch on the moment you knew that you got your pro card. Walk us through a little bit of those feelings and emotions. And then why don't you finish up our conversation today with telling us what your thoughts are in terms of possibly a pro debut, when that might be. And then we'll kind of we'll wrap things up from there.
Oh wow! So going into the evening, I mean, everybody was already congratulating me. It's like, oh, you got this, you got this, you got this. And I'm the type of person where I'm not going to say anything social media wise until I know for certain that this has happened. I definitely reposted people commenting on my story, like, congratulations, Nick, that kind of thing. But as a personal statement from myself, like from my own mouth, from my own fingers, I'm not saying anything until I actually have it in hand that this is what it's going to be, because I would hate to be that person that says, oh, I got first. And like, oh, wait, no, it was like 3rd place. So going in the finals, I had a quiet confidence that it was going to be a top 3 placing. I just wanted to be sure. I wanted to be as real as possible that this was the moment that I was going to finally turn pro, because this is my 4th national show. And I've been knocking on the door with a 4th place placing, 3rd place, 5th place. Like, I'm right here. Like, just open the door for me. I'm right here. So get backstage. And I'm realizing a lot of the people didn't come back for the finals. And I thought that was so disheartening. I was like, you should still come back no matter where you placed. You should still come back. But as we were going through our individuals and the routines and everything like that, and they pulled us through and they lined us along the diagonal. And each number was getting called out because I thought potentially there was going to be a rejudge, but clearly they wasn't. And as they called the third place guy, it wasn't me. So it was just me, and I can't, for the life of me, I can't remember the guy who was sitting next to me. We follow each other on Instagram now, but I can't remember his name. I hope he doesn't take offense. I can't remember his name. Um, but we were standing next to each other, and we were talking with each other backstage and kind of get to know each other a little bit. Great guy, super humble. Um, when they called his number, that's when it became real. And that's when I kind of just dropped down and I put my head down. And that picture that Whitman took of me crouched down looking up, that was probably, as I said in the caption, the rawest moment of feeling, because everything rushed back. Every surgery, every setback, everything just came flooding back into the front of my mind. And my wife asked me, were you going to cry? I was like, I held it back. I really did, because it had been such a goal, and to finally achieve it was such a high point. And knowing the road that took me to get here, and all those things come flooding back. And so I cherish that moment. I go back to that moment all the time. Like, I know it's Tuesday, but I still think about it. I think about it often. And being able to hoist up that pro card and pose and say that I'm the light heavyweight 2022 champion, like all those things, I don't take for granted. It is a privilege, and it's a blessing to be able to say that. And so coming off of that and being able to process that moment and celebrate with my wife and call my coach and celebrate with him, and all my other close friends who have been with me from day one, being able to share in that with everyone has been such a beautiful moment, and something that I would never ever forget. And I will always replay it consistently I'm definitely, when I'm 50, 60, 70, I'm going to come back to um, December 3rd as one of the best moments in my life. Um, as far as pro show debuts and that kind of thing, I think 2024 would be the best timetable, because I really want to take a full year, not only for growth, but just a full year to kind of spend time with my family and catch up on things with them, and not have to say, have another prep to get ready for. Like, I want to be able to relax with them and spend as much time with them, because I had to prep through Thanksgiving. And so I want to be able to enjoy all the things, the summertime, the birthdays, all the things, without saying I have to bring a cooler Tupperware because I have to stay on track. So I think 2024 would be the proper timetable for a pro debut, as I spend the latter part of this year and all of next year just bringing up what I think are weak points. So when I do step on stage for that pro debut, it's another best look for me.
Excellent, man. Now, one thing I do want to ask you about, I saw this on your Instagram. It looks like it's kind of like your little quote, but it's just simply says the work continues. That's kind of what your last little caption on that post where you were kind of bowed down after you got your pro card. So what does the work continues mean to you, and what does that look like practically in the days and months and years to come?
So for me, it's one of those things where we all set goals for ourselves, and when we have a goal, that's what drives us each day, is when we have goals to achieve. And so for me, having new goals set allows me to continue to drive and work hard. And I feel like if I don't have a goal set, if I don't have something in mind I'm trying to achieve, then I'm not using my time wisely. And so I want to be able to use my time effectively and wisely. And so when I say the work continues, it's really a challenge to myself to continue to set goals and to continue to set things to work towards. Like the the previous goal obviously that was to get a pro card. Like we've achieved that now. And so now the new goal is to step on a pro stage. And then once we achieve that, then it's going to be to win a pro show. And then from there, it's going to be hopefully to get to the Olympia stage, so they win the Olympia. So it's all incremental things, like just in the world of bodybuilding. Like this is the conversation I'm holding this in. Like those are the incremental goals that I'm setting for myself. And so it allows me to have that extra fuel when I go work out. It allows me to have the extra fuel when I make my meals, and everything that I do, the small tasks that I do to lead me up to achieving that one goal that I set for myself. And I think also it goes to not resting on my laurels. I think sometimes when people achieve a goal, they just want to sit back and not really take any other action to continue to move forward. And there's nothing wrong, and let me say, there's nothing wrong with enjoying the moment and being present in the moment. I think that's so important to do. And I always tell my friends, always be present. Don't let this pass up. Like enjoy every moment. But in the same breath, be able to see the next goal ahead and work towards that next one. And so that's what my personal feeling is in regards to the work continues.
Love it, man. Okay, last kind of fun question, then we'll wrap it up. What was the food that you were looking forward to having during this last prep that you had after your competition, if you've had it, which I'm assuming you did? What was that, or what's been your favorite meal off plan so far?
Oh wow! So I was really craving pizza um, for post show, and so we found this place. I think it's Anthony's Cold Pizza or something like that in Orlando. It's maybe 10 minutes away from the venue, and it was delicious. It was so good, and I had like this garlic knots too. I was like on top of everything, so that was just delicious. What I haven't had yet and what I'm looking forward to having is my mom's corn muffins. They're so like she makes them from scratch and they're so good. I have the recipe here at home. My mom wrote it down for me. So I'll be making them at some point and I'm going to enjoy those. They're just the best. So had the pizza, just still waiting on the corn muffins.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, those corn muffins, man, that sounds really good. So, all right, Nick, I just want to say, man, I really appreciate you coming onto the podcast, man, and sharing your life story with us, your bodybuilding story. Before I do a quick outro and we're kind of done here, I just want to turn it back over to you one last time. If you have any final thoughts, any final words, why don't you give us your Instagram, any shout outs, whatever you kind of want to leave us in closing. I'm going to turn it over to you and then I'll do a quick outro and that'll be a wrap. So platform's yours, my man.
Perfect. You can follow me at JD Muscle. I'm always posting like different workouts and things of that nature, progress photos, different humor because I love funny things. If you find things funny, feel free to send them to me. I love to laugh. If I have anything to share as far as just tips, it's just don't let things stop you from achieving your goals, no matter what it is. Continue to work, continue to strive. There's nothing that can stop you from achieving anything but you. Don't let anyone tell you you can't do something. Don't let your own inner voice tell you you can't do something. You are strong enough. You have the ethic. You have everything you need. Only thing you need to do is just do it. And I just want to give a big shout out to my wife for being such a support system for me. And also my coach, Jeff Later, for creating the plan to get us here and for believing in me to continue to work with me. And just a shout out to literally everyone who's been in my corner from day one. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys, and your support means everything.
Cool. All right, Nick, really appreciate your time. Okay.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. All of you who are tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you so very much. If you guys have not done so already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button in regards to BTM on YouTube. That's really important because I release all of these episodes first on YouTube, and then I distribute them to iTunes, CastBox, Podbean, and some of the other major podcast platforms. So if you want to stay current on all the BTM episodes, make sure you are subscribed to us on YouTube. And then also please take this episode with Nick. Make sure you share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you please tag Nick. Also tag Behind the Muscle podcast so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it. When you guys share these episodes on your Instagram stories and you tag us, it's just a great way for other people that have not found BTM yet to find it. They're going to watch, they're going to listen, they're going to be positively impacted through these coaches and athlete stories that they're sharing on the podcast. And that's really what my heart's desire is in terms of bringing on these athletes, bringing on these coaches, and having this podcast, having this platform, is that other humans are going to share their stories, and then other humans are going to listen to those stories, and they're going to be positively impacted in some way. So please make sure you are sharing all of these episodes. It's just greatly appreciated on this end. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.